If there's any video I ever make where I sincerely ask you, the viewer, to watch to the end, this is it. This is a portrait of Matsuo Basho, a Japanese haiku poet of the Edo period. He is one of the greatest and most renowned literary figures in a country rich in literary tradition, and often regarded as the greatest master of haiku poetry who ever lived. This is a famous quote attributed to him, which basically means, "Go to the pine trees if you want to learn about the pine trees, or to the bamboo if you want to learn about the bamboo. And in doing so, you must leave your subjective preoccupation with yourself behind. Otherwise, you impose yourself on the object and do not learn." Basho is going to serve as our spiritual guide to simple wisdom ever onwards, as we dive headfirst into the swirling maelstrom of subjectivity known as rape culture. Now, we're gonna have fun today, kids, because of all the backwards, knuckle-headed concepts to come out of feminism, I don't think any quite takes the cake like rape culture. So what exactly is it? Well, it is a culture in which rape is pervasive and normalized due to societal attitudes about gender and sexuality. The term rape culture was first used in the 1970s by second-wave feminists and was applied to contemporary American culture as a whole. Rape culture manifests through the acceptance of rapes as an everyday occurrence and even a male prerogative. Sexualized violence towards women is regarded as a continuum of a society that regards women's bodies as sexually available by default. Now, let me take a moment to acknowledge straight out that I'm an American, and my views and experience come from an American background. And based on my admittedly limited knowledge of other countries, what I've heard of some places like South Africa or the Congo or Iraq, etc., some of these concepts might be more applicable. I don't really have enough knowledge to say or make any insightful comments, and I suspect that many Americans who do comment on it probably haven't been there to see it, haven't gone to the pine trees themselves. So for right now, let's just leave those countries out of the discussion and talk about America, because as far as rape culture, yeah, that ain't it. I mean, where do I begin to unravel this ball of stupid? Rape is pervasive and normalized? Pervasive we will talk about later, but normalized? Really? Acceptance of rape as an everyday occurrence? Does that sound at all congruent to reality? Do you think that if you went to your family and friends and just casually announced, "Yeah, I raped someone today," they would say something like, "Oh, that's cool. Hey, what time is dinner tonight?" Yeah, please, try it out. See what happens. Society regards women's bodies as sexually available by default? I didn't know that. Fuck, I wish somebody had told me that before I went to that PTA meeting. The time would have passed so much faster if I had known that at any moment I was allowed to just pull out the teacher's floppy breasts and beat them around for my own amusement. Now, I'm being flippant, and I know that. But it's just to demonstrate how ridiculous these sweeping, unqualified statements are. I mean, if feminists would tone down the argument to more acceptable or realistic parameters, I might understand, like, we're living in a highly sexualized culture, or a sex-driven culture. But no! Right out of the gates, our culture accepts and normalizes rape. Women's bodies are sexually available by default. Right there. Now, I think I know where a lot of this comes from. You see, there's no constant, and there tends to be a disconnect between what people think of rape, the image they have, and legal realities. So for the purposes of this talk, let's make a constant. Have you ever seen the rape scene in the French movie Irreversible? That scene is choreographed and shot in a very realistic way, and it is so stark and brutal that even knowing that what you're seeing is not really real, even knowing that it's just an actor and actress performing a scene, it makes you squirm in your chair. It is my belief that when most people use the word rape, in their minds what they are picturing is something like this scene. And I also believe that no matter who you are, if you are not a psychopath, if you are a feminist or an anti-feminist like myself, black or white, Asian or Latino, Christian or atheist, anybody would look at that scene and say, unequivocally that what the rapist is doing is wrong. Now again, there's a disconnect. Most feminists want to use the raw emotional power of that word and apply it to all situations evenly, when some situations don't necessarily call for it. A girl gets drunk at a party and consensually agrees to have sex, and later regrets it and calls it rape. Is it rape? Does it deserve this kind of emotional response? Well, I reserve the right to use common sense and say it depends on the specifics of each situation. But feminists say, no! If you don't agree with us, you're victim blaming. You're a rape apologist. You're contributing to rape culture. Trivializing rape. Just telling jokes about rape. You're contributing to rape culture. Think I'm exaggerating? Go down and read it. Rape culture can be perpetuated via language used in everyday conversations. The frequency of rape jokes on the internet has been cited as an example of the belittling of rape that characterizes rape culture. So, yes, according to feminist thinking, telling jokes about rape increases rape culture. Even though that's like saying talking about Hawaii increases your chances of going to Hawaii. Denial of widespread rape. Think about that for a second. Just denying widespread rape adds to rape culture. Even if you've educated yourself on the topic, just disagreeing with the feminist line of thinking means you are increasing rape culture. So as you can see, the definitions and terminology can be very problematic. Feminism draws these very hard and uncompromising lines with its terms. There are many unqualified black and white statements which do not necessarily conform to the reality of the world. Many times one might say, I don't agree with your definition of that word, and it gets translated in the feminist mind as, oh, so you agree with rape? You like rape? Victim blamer! Rape apologist! Now, you wouldn't believe the magical journeys that this kind of screechy and incoherent logic can take us on. Because what feminists lack in common sense, they more than make up for in volume. Case in point, Michael Sanguinetti, the Toronto area police official who in 2011 drew the ire of feminists by saying at a York University safety forum that women should avoid dressing like sluts to avoid getting raped. This was interpreted in the feminist mind to mean, if you dress like a slut, you deserve to get raped. And in protest, they staged the glorious series of events known as slut walks. How do we know they feel this way? Well, in the words of Sonia Barnett, a slut walk co-founder, we want police services to truly get behind the idea that victim blaming, slut shaming, and sexual profiling are never acceptable. The idea that a slut is a lesser person and deserving of sexual assault isn't exclusive to the police. Media also has to get behind this idea. So let's remember, as we wade hip deep into it, that the whole idea this is predicated upon is that Michael Sanguinetti said that if you dress like a slut, you deserve to be raped. Now, remember when I said this is going to be fun? Well, strap in, because there is nothing quite like the slut walk for just sheer, unfocused, misguided, self-righteous knee-jerkery. So, how do these slut walks work? Well, essentially, a bunch of feminists will get together, dress in the sluttiest way they can, and march around a city brandishing signs that teach us all valuable lessons and instill us with a deep sense of wisdom, like, met a slut today? Don't assault her! Yes! Thank you, middle-aged lady in a bra. Yes, don't assault her! Gah! I keep forgetting about that. Or, rape is never okay. Thank you, feminists, for teaching me that. Or how about, I love my cunt? I know what you're thinking, and you're absolutely right. Shakespeare couldn't do any better. And they just go on, ranging from the accusatory, to the smug and smarmy, to the what the fuck are you trying to say, to the No, really? What the fuck are you trying to say? Look at how sad you made Link. It used to be so simple. Now, if he wants to stab Ganon with his sword, he has to get Ganon's full consent, and if Ganon was drinking, that doesn't count, and on and on and on. Some of these pictures just make my head explode at the bizarre mixed signals they give off. Here is a young, fresh-faced, I would say friendly-looking young lady, and written across her stomach, as if from the projected thoughts of an embittered old sea hag, "Don't fucking touch me!" Yikes! Okay, I won't touch you. Actually, in all my life, I have never just gone up to a woman I don't know and just put my hand on her exposed midriff. I mean, I looked. You got me. I looked. I didn't think it was a crime. I mean, I am allowed to open my eyes and look at the world around me, right? Some of the signs follow a similar pattern of words and logic, like, "Don't tell me how to dress, tell him not to rape," or "Society teaches don't get raped rather than don't rape," which seems to labor under some epically faulty propositions like society doesn't condemn the act of rape. Bull fucking shit. When a public figure has been condemned of rape, or hell, even often accused of it, their credibility immediately go bye-bye, and they are identified as someone we don't ever need listen to. These slut-walk feminists are operating under the delusion that when they say, "Don't assault somebody," or "Don't rape somebody," there is fucking anybody who is on the opposite side of that picket line, on Team Rape, who says, "Yay, rape! Sexual assault is great! I love rape!" It is the epitome of just intellectually disingenuous bullshit. This picture is just great. This picture, you know how they say a picture is worth 1,000 words? This picture just absolutely tells me a story, which just encapsulates what these idiotic slutwalks are all about. Here we have a sassy-looking young lady with a sign covered in her red lipstick kiss marks, which says, "It's my hot body, I do what I want. That's right, I do what I want." When I see this picture, I just clearly imagine in my mind's eye her caring but soft-hearted father just pleading with her not to go to the party. "Jessica, honey, please don't go to Taylor's party. You know how wild it always gets. We just don't want to see you get hurt." "Fuck you, Daddy. I do whatever I want. I do what I want." This one, though, is just my favorite. This picture needs to win an award for just sheer numbskullery. You have a concept, rape culture, which arguably doesn't even exist, and even if it did, it would exist as an intangible set of behaviors and attitudes. Here, being represented by a tangible object, a piñata, being enthusiastically whacked by a young girl with a stick, as if rape culture is something you can just hit with a blunt object and make it go away. This picture is simply a masterpiece. Rah! I'm rape culture! I'm rape culture over here! I'm gonna make all the people think that rape is normal! Oh, no, you don't, rape culture! Feminism is the hammer we use to smash the patriarchy. And now that that problem is relatively under control, it's your turn. Take this. Pooh! Bow! You got me. Thanks for showing me the error of my ways, feminism. Who knew that jamming my sausage into a woman, screaming "no, no, no," was a bad thing? All kidding aside, all bullshit aside, slutwalks, while I can laugh at some of the goofier elements, really, really bother me. Because of the many faulty propositions they rest on, some of them are honestly dangerous. They seem to be confusing the fact that rapes exist with the idea that they exist because society somehow supports them. There are fundamental truths of life that they just won't face and accept. Look at this. A world without rape culture. A world without rape. That sounds great. That sounds wonderful. It's fucking naive. If humans have the possibility of being good, it follows that there is the possibility of being evil. It is a fundamental part of the complete human experience. You will never live in a world where no one commits crimes. I mean, have you ever seen a goddamn sports game in your life? People break the rules all the time. Even performers at the highest level, having every move they make, every moment on the field recorded by high-definition cameras, they're not supposed to break the rules, they fucking do. We don't know everything about rapists, but a common fact about criminology itself is that a small portion of a type of criminals commit a large portion of that crime. So, yes, a small group of hardened, cold-hearted rapists who consciously know that what they're doing is wrong and don't give a flying fuck about it, who aren't really impressed by seeing your simplistic, ludicrously overworded, misspelled, grammatically incorrect signs, they are the ones responsible for the majority of rapes. So I gotta ask, are we really doing sassy little Miss Jessica any favors by teaching her that no matter what, it's not your fault? So just do whatever you want, dress however you want, drink whatever you want, because it's not your fault. So when sassy little Jessica brings her fine ass to the party thinking, bitch, I do whatever I want, it's not my fault that you want my fine ass so much. Tell me, what the fuck does fault matter when you're in the arms of a psychopath? How does fault matter when the lion is eating you alive? There is no negotiation at that point. Yes, it's not your fault. Yes, it isn't fair. Welcome to responsibility. So in conclusion, you fail, slutwalks. You fail on a fundamental level, teaching a generation of sassy Jessicas to go ahead and douse themselves with barbecue sauce and jump into the lion's den, because if it eats you, it's not your fault. All of that might be fine if you would also include in your message that being a slut is fine and honorable and beautiful as long as you are a smart slut. But that reciprocal idea of responsibility, even the hint of responsibility, is nowhere to be found because it's not your fault. You didn't follow Basho's simple advice and go to the pine trees to learn about the pine trees. Remember, all of this nonsense is predicated upon the proposition that Michael Sanguinetti essentially said that sluts deserve to get raped. But if we see for ourselves, what he actually said to about 10 students was, you know, I think we're beating around the bush here. I've been told I'm not supposed to say this. However, women should avoid dressing like sluts in order not to be victimized. Yes, he went off script and tried to give some practical advice on how to avoid victimization. He did not explicitly state or even imply that anyone should get raped or deserves to get raped. He even said, I'm not supposed to say this. You slutwalk activists didn't go to the pine trees to learn. You took your subjective preoccupation and imposed it on the object and thereby didn't learn anything. Your entire premise is based on a misunderstanding. Now for the most important part. Take my hand. You and I are going to go on a journey. We're going to go to the mountain and learn about the pine trees face to face. Now let's imagine we are a modern day feminist who wants to arm ourselves with facts before we join a slutwalk. We're going to go to the most widely used search engine, Google, we're going to try to find information for feminists about rape statistics. So we're going to type in feminist rape statistics. And what do you know? The number one match is the very basic and promising looking feminist.com. So we're going to check it out for info, and conveniently, it's a clear list of facts on rape for the United States. Let's read, shall we? Okay, fact number 1. Over 22 million in the US have been raped in their lifetime. 18.3% of women in the US have survived a completed or attempted rape. Of the 18.3% of women who have survived rape or attempted rape, 12.3% were younger than the age of 12 when they were first raped, and 29.9% were between the ages of 11 and 17. Every 90 seconds, somewhere in America, someone is sexually assaulted. 1 out of every 5 American women has been the victims of an attempted or completed rape in their lifetime. And I don't know why it's mixed together, but anyway. Fact 6. Approximately 1.27 million women are raped each year. Now, let's stop right here for now. Does any of that seem fishy to you? Fact 1 says 22 million women raped in their lifetime, yet Fact 6 says 1.27 million women raped per year. Now, unless women only live to about 20 years, or unless it's mostly the same women getting raped year after year, those numbers don't seem to jive. We have a lot of facts, but we haven't really gone to the pine trees. Now, let's admit that many people end their journey right here and go off to preach about the pine trees. But actually, we are just at the base of the mountain. Now, we can notice that these numbers are taken from 2 studies. The National Intimate Partner and Sexual Violence Survey 2010, made by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, and the 2012 National Crime Victimization Survey by the U.S. Department of Justice. Now, we're getting closer. We're on the right track. I don't see any reason to doubt the source. The CDC and the Department of Justice are government-run organizations putting out this information for public knowledge. They're not a feminist group with a PayPal donation button on their website. But let's take a closer look at the methodology of the studies. We're about halfway up the mountain. The trees are getting closer. So let's go down to the bottom of this page and we see a link to the Department of Justice study. The CDC study isn't listed, but it wasn't hard to find. So let's open it up to its first chart on page 18, which is lifetime and 12 months prevalence of sexual violence for women. Now, before we do anything, take a cursory look at both columns for estimated number of victims. Notice anything? Yes, that's right. They all end with 000. Why is that? Right again. These aren't actual recorded cases, they are projections. Now, let's go back and look at the methodology a little closer. And what do we find? The National Intimate Partner and Sexual Violence Survey is a national random digit dial telephone survey. In 2010, a total of 18,049 interviews were conducted, 9,930 women, and 8,079 men. So did you get that? These numbers are projections of millions and millions were taken from a telephone survey sample of less than 20,000 people, and while 1 year might be reasonable, it casts some serious doubt on the lifetime projections, wouldn't you say? Now, let's take another cursory look at some of the charts. And do you notice something else? Right again. Many of these charts have gaps in their columns because the sample size was too low to make an estimate. So, American males, I have some good news and some bad news. The bad news is, according to this study, 1.3 million white men will suffer rape in their lifetime. The good news, though, is that no other ethnicity of males will. You're all safe, American Asians, blacks, Latinos. Now, does all of that make this study useless? Well, maybe yes and maybe no. But at least you saw the bamboo trees for yourself and can judge with a bit more wisdom before you go to a rally and throw out some possibly dubious numbers. Now, let's check out that Department of Justice study. A cursory look at the victimization numbers and, aha! They do end in a 0, but at least it's not 000. Hopefully this is a bit more accurate. Okay, now let's check the methodology, and we see that the National Crime Victimization Survey is an annual data collection conducted by the U.S. Census Bureau for the Bureau of Justice Statistics. The survey results presented in this report are based on data gathered from residents living throughout the United States. Each housing unit selected for the NCVS remains in the sample for 3 years, with each of its 7 interviews taking place at 6-month intervals. An NCVS field representative's first contact with the household selected for the survey is in person. The field representative may conduct subsequent interviews by telephone. To elicit more accurate reporting of incidents, the NCVS uses a self-respondent method that requires a direct interview with each person. In 2010, 40,974 households and 73,283 individuals aged 12 and older were interviewed for the NCVS. So immediately, we can see several reasons why this study is probably much more accurate than the CDC study. Let's review clearly. The CDC study is a one-time only, machine-dialed telephone survey of 18,049 individuals, and it attempts to make longer lifetime projections. The Department of Justice NCVS study is a 7-time over 3-year survey of the same people. It is based on face-to-face and telephone interviews with a human interviewer. It interviews 73,283 individuals, and it doesn't make lifetime predictions, just year by year. None of which vitally important factors we would have known if we just believed immediately what feminist.com told us. In fact, let's go back. What did it tell us? Fact number 6. Approximately 1.27 million women are raped each year. Department of Justice 2010. Well, actually, that's not what the NCVS says at all. That number came from the CDC study. And do you want to actually know what the more accurate Department of Justice NCVS study says? It says the crime of rape and sexual assault for both men and women in the United States was 188,380. Yeah, that's a hell of a way off from 1.27 million women only. Wouldn't you agree? Now, let's not take a cursory look, let's take a careful look. Does anything jump out at you about these numbers? Correct again. Barring personal theft, which is things like pickpocketing and purse snatching, rape and sexual assault is the lowest number on this list of crimes. I repeat, the lowest number. Welcome to the fucking pine trees. So, no, feminists, we are not living in a rape culture. Actually, we're living in the age of information, which simultaneously means the age of misinformation. Now, you are free to believe or dismiss these numbers as you will, but at least I believe we demonstrated Bashow's simple but powerful principle. And I encourage you not to take my word for it, but use the advice of Basho when you really want to learn about something. If you liked this video, then rate, subscribe, and comment. If you didn't, then let's just agree that ironic protest signs are hilarious.